beautiful art in a home can make a home sparkle to a point where it becomes irresistible. So art can really make the difference. And if the seller has less than art, it can hurt the sale. So sometimes I ask them to take the art down. But if they've got great art, it can really help a sale. And I like that. And the same thing with yard, with sculpture, and things that are attached outside sculpture can really set a property up beautifully.
All right, Jim Jacobs, we're here at the Art Dealer Diaries. Thank you for coming in today.
My pleasure, Mark. Good to see you.
You weren't expecting that call, right? Come on in.
Podcast. This is my first podcast.
It's your very first podcast. I wish this was my first podcast sometime.
This is number how many?
About 110, maybe, something in that range, yeah.
Okay.
So I figure when I hit 1,000, I'm toast. So it's taken 3 years to get to 110. That's one per week, basically.
Okay.
So one of my clients was like, yeah, I want you to go to 1,000. I was thinking, wow, that's a lot. You know?
I don't know how you accomplish all you do.
You
amaze me sometimes.
You just keep busy, right?
Yeah.
You don't waste time. I mean,
Right.
I think you kind of saw me today. I was like, okay, I've seen it. I'm ready to go. Let's move on.
Right.
And so what Jim does, and I've known Jim for 10 years, maybe about 10 years. By the way, he's Tucson's best real estate person. And that's not, and I'm not just saying that. He's sold me a couple houses and sold a bunch for other clients. And I just was my son, actually, who met with you, who's interested in real estate. He said, Dad, you should have Jim on. He's really interesting. You could talk about a lot of things that are, the association of art and houses and architecture. And I thought, that's right. I haven't had anybody on that does that. And you've seen some of the great houses in Tucson. So I thought it seemed like it would be a very interesting component of, let's think about it. When I do my job, it's putting art into houses that are often have empty walls, right?
Right.
New houses or ones that have just been purchased.
Right.
And and yet I've not talked to somebody that is the person who's doing those kind of things. So it makes sense to me. And since you're the number one real estate guy, you just got some award, right? What was the award?
I did. I was awarded for 2020 the Kelly Bequette Humanitarian Award. And that's basically because I've taken so many agents under my wing and try to teach them professionalism in our industry that is sorely lacking. And that's one of the things that really is important to me is dealing with professional agents.
Yeah. And when you say sorely lacking, in what way?
There are a lot of amateurs out there, and they just play. You can get a real estate license by taking a six-week class,
yes.
And you've got a license. Beyond that, you have to learn, you have to train, you have to care, and I think that's where professionalism comes in. I'm constantly taking classes. I've been doing this 25 years in Tucson, and I'm taking classes all the time. I just need to continually get better.
Yeah, well, I remember exactly when I met you. We were looking for a house, kind of a house between houses, and it was a house I really wasn't interested in. I didn't think so, but it was like an open house, and you were there. It was over not too far from the gallery, actually.
Right.
And I went and looked in, and there was a few issues I could see right off the bat as far as how it, the traffic going around it and things. And I asked you, what do you think? And you were the first one to say, yeah, well, I think this could be an issue. Instead of trying to sell me, oh, no, it's great, look at the kitchen, you said, yeah, no, that is an issue. And that is something to be taken into consideration. And then I asked you about price structure, and you were like, yeah, it's fairly priced. It's not, it's not a steal for sure. It's, maybe even a little bit on the higher end, but it's, it is what it is. And I thought, okay, that's what I want. Somebody who's going to give me the real scoop of what I'm looking at. The piece of, in this case, the piece of art was a house. And I try to do the exact same thing when people come into me and ask me a question. They'll have two paintings that they both like, and they like them equally, and one's maybe 8,000, one's 6,000, and if they like them both, I will say. And if they ask my opinion, say, well, if you like them equally, this one's 6, this one's 8, go with a 6. I mean, it's not as much money as long as it's equally quality in some form or fashion.
Right.
And I try to give them my straight scoop of what I think. I don't try to do any of this upselling and all that stuff. It's just not who I am or what I am or ever want to be. And I kind of get that's who you are too.
It is. That's my philosophy. My integrity and my good name is all I have.
Right.
And my business comes from referrals from clients like you and others who've been happy with the way I work. And if I don't have integrity and I don't speak truthfully, it shines right through.
Yeah. And I think one of the hardest things for you to do and for me is you go into a house and people have these certain expectations because it's their house, right? They put so much money in it, they love it and all this. And you have to give them a real evaluation of what you think the value is. And I know a lot of times when you do that, you lose the house because you get somebody else who goes, oh, no, we can get you more.
True. It happens all the time. I have to be frank with them, and I let them know right up front, I'm going to be frank with you, and I'm going to tell you some things you may not want to hear. If they won't accept it, they're probably not the client for me.
Right.
I don't sell 1 million houses a year. I sell 30 or 40 houses a year. So I don't have to take everything that comes my way. I can take people and houses that I like, and clients that are realistic, and clients that will listen to me. I'll listen to them, and their points are valid, but they need to understand where I'm coming from too. It's my career. It's what I do.
Yeah, you see it. I mean, you know all these things.
Right.
And do you find, I find it in my business, that you'll get a real estate person comes in and they'll give them a really high estimate because they want to get the sale, right? They want to get the listing. And they get the listing, then it doesn't sell. They burn the house because, in the sense of, that's what we call it in the art market, burning the art market.
Right. It becomes old goods.
It becomes old goods.
Yeah.
And then that that person who has it says, well, we thought it would do this and didn't. And they lower the price to right where you were, right? And then have a problem selling it because it's old goods.
Right. Right. And it's true. My background was in the wholesale clothing business, and I worked on 7th Avenue in New York. And I dealt with retailers, and I watched them price goods, and I watched them mark goods down. And the longer goods sit on the rack, the lower the price goes. So when a client tells me, I'm in no hurry, that's the kiss of death.
Yeah, interesting.
We're in a hurry. We want this sold when we can get the maximum dollar for it.
Right. They equate, I'm in no hurry, with I want to get the most I can get. And the reality is, if they price it too high, they've just
shot themselves in the foot.
Completely.
Right.
It's the same exact thing in the art world.
Interesting.
It really is exactly the same thing. And things that are freshest to the market and haven't been seen and and haven't maybe been on the market for a very long time are good pieces. Those are the things people want. And they should sell fast if you get it within a range. I always say it's a range. Okay, here's a low end, here's a high end, here's the middle. If it's an exceptional piece, put it at the higher end. That's fine.
Right. Right now, the inventory is very low in Tucson, and properties are selling in the foothills for an average of 10 days.
Wow.
Which is incredible. We've never had numbers like this.
Wow.
Some of them first day on the market. I just sold one first day on the market. And if you price it right, you are open to do that. If you overprice it, people avoid you. And then it becomes old goods, and you've missed that whole initial bubble.
Yes. And what do you think? I mean, we're today is like almost the end of June, and we're in a pandemic. We're in civil distress, election year, and why are people buying like that? What's your take on that? I mean, you've been doing this for 25 years?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And the mountains are burning.
And the mountains burning. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, I'm having a hard time getting homeowners insurance in place because the insurance companies are pulling their underwriting for homes in the foothills around the mountains. Huh. So it's a crazy time to be selling homes.
Even though they've lost 0 homes. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But they're pulling it because their underwriters are in Iowa.
Yeah.
And they don't know what's going on.
They see Mark Sublette's Facebook of a burning
That's right.
mountain.
That's right.
It's still safe here, folks.
That's right. But the bottom line is there is a shortage of inventory. People are not putting their homes on the market unless they have to. So with that, there's not many out there. There is pent-up demand. People are coming to Tucson. People are trading up, down, sideways, divorce, marriage, transfer, various reasons, retirement. they come to Tucson and there's nothing on the market. So we're all looking and looking, and you've got 5,500 realtors in Tucson, and we're all looking every day, and something good comes on, and we attack it like locusts. So the good ones are gone with multiple offers in a minute.
Wow.
And but if you've got a good eye, you can tell a good house.
Yes.
There's old goods, they're sitting around. So the longer they sit, the worse they look.
Yeah.
If you've got a listing that's sitting around for 60 or 70 or 80 days, you get calls from other agents wanting to know what's wrong with that house. And you hate to be in that position.
Is that about when it happens at about the 60-day mark?
Right. Even before that now. In the old days, it was 60 days. Now it's after 3 weeks. What's wrong with that house?
And usually what's the issue?
Price.
It's almost always price. Yeah.
That's the cure. You can clean up a house. You can stage a house. You can landscape a house. You can put artwork in a house. You can put better pictures, have better pictures taken of the house. You can use drone photography. You can do all kinds of things. But the house is still the house, and the desirability will only match a certain price. If you're in that price, it'll sell.
And so how things like Zillow affect you?
They affect me some. Some people find that they can sell their home to Zillow with one button. And that's one of Zillow's big selling features now. And they think, well, we'll just avoid the whole hassle of putting the house on the market. What we've found is the seller is usually leaving maybe 20% on the table.
Wow, that's huge.
When they take that shortcut. So if they let a realtor market the property and get the maximum dollar for it, they're going to net quite a bit more money.
Is Zillow literally looking at just all the houses around it? And in other words, they haven't actually looked at the house.
No. Zillow is completely a computerized bot. And they just take data and they crunch data. And they know nothing about our market. They have a disclaimer on their site for Pima County that says their values are within 20% of the actual value.
Yeah.
That's a huge number.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like the tax assessor uses. Everything is done computerized. There are no assessors walking in homes anymore.
Right. Yeah. That's interesting. So you said you were a buyer for luxury goods, and I kind of want to go back to that before we go too deep into the real estate end, because I've got a lot of questions, because I've always liked real estate, as you know. And so where'd you grow up, Jim?
I grew up in Tucson, Arizona. I'm a native Tucsonan.
Oh, no, that's interesting.
Born here mid-50s, grew up near Broadway and Wilmot in a Lusk home, who was a famous mid-century builder. Back in the days, they were not a famous mid-century builder. They were a tract home builder, but they were burn adobe, and they've become very collectible. And the neighborhoods are now historic districts. So San Rafael, where I grew up, and Indian Ridge are two Lusk neighborhoods that are now on the historic.
Is your house still there, your old house?
It's still there.
Have you ever got to sell it?
No. I've sold on that street, but I've never resold my old house.
Ever thought about buying it?
No.
No, you got a much better house.
I kind of like living in the foothills.
Yeah, no, I know where you live.
Looking right into a canyon it just makes my heart sing every day.
And what did your dad and mom do in Tucson?
My dad owned an insurance agency, and my mom worked for my dad. And they were a working couple. I have two older brothers. My godfather was the most prominent architect in Tucson of the day, from the 60s and 70s into the 80s, a fellow named Bernard Friedman. And his firm, Friedman and Joe Bush, is famous in Tucson. He designed things like the Chase Bank at Broadway and Country Club, the Sculptural Bank.
Yeah, it's an Art Deco kind of mid-century modern.
Yeah. And he did the Hirsch's shoes in Broadway Village, and he did some very cool buildings. And he ignited my passion for architecture and design. So when I was in the fashion business, and I traveled quite a bit, I would always poke around the various towns I would go to and look at the homes. And so that piqued my interest in real estate. And
he was your godfather?
He was my godfather, and very close. He and his wife were my parents' best friends, and we vacationed with them. And we hung out with them and did shared holidays together. And it was pretty special. And he built some very cool homes here in Tucson. And I just got to sell one of those.
Oh, yeah?
Up in an area called Cobo Hills, which is up off Christie Drive.
And did it have that sensibility, that modernistic sensibility?
It was built in 65. It was mid-century modern when they didn't use the mid-century moniker.
Right.
And my client was looking for a mid-century, and that had come on the market. And I said, I know about this house.
And there's a lot of those around here, like mid-century moderns. Maybe not his, but there's, it's like we think of Palm Springs and all these places, but really there's a ton in Tucson, right?
Right. There were, Tom Gist was an architect who
Yes.
did quite a bit of mid-century, and there are agents in town who specialize in mid-century. I do quite a bit of it. I don't specialize in it, but I've done quite a bit of it, and I enjoy it.
And you specialize more in the foothills, right?
I do.
Yeah.
My forte are homes that I love and interesting homes.
Yeah.
I sell tract homes, I sell production homes to make a living, but the unique homes are where I have my joy
Yeah.
in what I do. And that's when I'm smiling.
Yeah. No,
And I love, and they're oftentimes more complicated projects.
I would think they would often be.
Right. But that's where I have the most fun.
Yeah. And so when you're growing up in Tucson, you got two older brothers, so you all must have been in that Vietnam War kind of time frame, right?
I just missed it. I was the first year they didn't call the draft numbers. Or they called the draft numbers, but they didn't choose any.
Yes. Was that like 73?
It was 73 was the year I graduated high school.
Yeah. What about your older brothers, though?
They did some things to avoid the draft.
Okay.
That I'm not getting into.
Yeah, I got it. So, but they were of that
Right
time.
in it.
Yeah.
Right in it.
Yeah.
And we marched against the war, and we were very against what was going on in Vietnam, and
Yes.
as a family.
Yes.
And that was a part of what we did. We were also swimmers. In Tucson, there wasn't a whole lot of football and Little
Right.
League and that kind of stuff. There was swim teams.
And rodeo, probably.
And rodeo.
Yeah.
Although I used to sell programs at the rodeo for my swim team to raise money. But there were neighborhood swimming pools, and we swam against each other, and then we had city championships at Randolph Park. And so we all grew up as swimmers on into high school. And I swam until my freshman year of high school, and then I realized I was done.
Yeah.
I started at age 4.
Oh, wow.
So 4 to 15 was enough.
And were your brothers competitive?
They were swimmers as well. Yeah. My middle brother is a rock and roll musician. And,
okay.
And he set the standards of being able to have long hair on a swim team for Palo Verde High School, and used to have to wear a swim cap.
Yeah.
And he went on to a professional career as a studio musician in LA.
Oh, wow. Does he still do that?
He's retired, but he does it just for himself, for he and his wife now.
I see.
But he did it for his career.
Yeah. And your older brother, what did he do?
My oldest brother was a television producer, and then went on into the tech industry, and ended up back in Tucson working at SunQuest, one of the big tech firms here.
And he's here. He's here now.
He's now retired and here.
Oh, yeah. Very good.
So he and his wife are here. My other brother's in Santa Monica with his wife.
Yeah. And so you graduate in 73?
73 Saguaro High School.
Yeah, Saguaro.
I was the first class to go through Saguaro High School.
And what did you think you were going to do out of high school?
I had no idea. I knew I had an entrepreneurial spirit. I had a desire for architecture, but I didn't have the math aptitude, so I didn't pursue it, which is one of those regrets. But so design was always in the back of my mind. And I actually started a jewelry manufacturing company doing Southwestern jewelry and trading.
Of course you did. It was 73.
Bracelets and necklaces and stringing liquid silver necklaces.
Yeah, they were all the Indian style stuff, right?
That's right. So I did that for a year or so.
Yeah, it was kind of at its peak right then.
Right.
And was it successful?
It was.
Yeah.
It was.
And then that kind of stopped, right?
It kind of stopped for various reasons. I ended up moving to LA and pursuing a passion for the movies, and which I didn't succeed at, but I got a job as a valet parking attendant and ended up doing private parties and restaurants in Beverly Hills, and ended up on the permanent valet parking crew at the Playboy Mansion.
Oh, my. And you were like 22, right?
I was 21, yeah. I was, and I did that for 3 years.
So you did valet for Hugh's place?
Right.
Okay.
Which is like a hotel.
Yeah, you got to tell me about this. That's
it was
crazy.
Fun. It was fun. I saw a lot. I have great memories.
I bet you do.
And I'll just leave it there.
Oh, no, that's not enough. You're not leaving it there. Who are some of the interesting people that you came through there?
Everyone came through there.
Everyone,
I
right?
was there in the early 70s, and it was the end of the golden era.
Yes.
So I met people like Groucho Marx
Oh,
and
wow.
Rosalind Russell and Jack Benny, and then on into the Johnny Carsons and Tony Curtis and David Jansen, and just the list, Sammy Davis, Elton John.
Wow.
The names just kept coming. And I did parties at some of their houses, and I did, and met them at the mansion.
And you did this for 3 years?
Uh-huh.
Do you think that gave you a sense of being able to deal with anybody? Because you're dealing with very famous people.
Most definitely.
Yeah, right? That
Most
had to make a
definitely.
difference, right?
Very wealthy people, very famous people, very powerful people.
Yes.
And dealing with them takes a certain art.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got to know how to be restrained and show enough respect, but also have enough fortitude.
Right.
It's a combination.
You need
that's
a
fine line.
personality. Yeah.
Right. Not anybody can do it.
No, I wouldn't think so. And did you, who was the best tipper, do you know? Do you remember one that was like the best?
Well, Hugh Hefner had a deal at his house. He paid us extra and we weren't allowed to take tips.
I see.
So, but there were some big tippers. David Jansen was great. He was in a show called The Fugitive.
Yes, oh yeah.
And he asked me once to take his Rolls-Royce convertible and gas it up because he was heading up to Santa Barbara later in the day. He said, "Do you have a few minutes to do this?" And I said, "Sure, Mr. Jansen, happy to do it." And I put the top down, took my little bow tie off, headed down to Westwood, and tooled around for about an hour and had the time of my life. And then he gave me a $100 tip.
Oh, that's huge.
So it was
yeah,
great.
that was a monster.
Yeah.
Plus, there was all the girls that were there, too.
Oh, yeah, I'm driving around
right?
Westwood, UCLA, and with my Corniche convertible, and it was a trip.
Did you get to go into the mansion at all? Or were you,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, what was that like?
Well, I was on the staff,
Yeah.
so I was basically a servant. So we came in the back door. We were fed. They always had a nice buffet for the staff, but also got to wander around at the parties. And there's a swimming pool with something called the Grotto.
Oh yeah,
and the Grotto was a sight to see. And we did sign non-disclosure agreements when we worked up there that we couldn't really talk about specifics.
I'm sure.
But there was lots of fun going on. And
Yeah.
it was a swinging 70s before AIDS and before a lot of things.
Yeah.
And it was a wild time.
Yeah, truly was that.
Yeah. And I had a ball.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I knew I couldn't continue that as a career.
Yeah.
But it was a fun time.
Well, you were probably making really good money, though, weren't you?
Pretty good. Yeah. Not career money, but good money for a young guy.
And at that point, were you still hoping to go? I assume you're interested in going into film. Is that where you went to LA to be an actor?
Right. I had worked in production in Tucson with road companies. Back in the day, Tucson was a big site for location shooting, and I worked for a lot of the movie companies on location here. I had a friend that owned the Executive Inn Hotel down on Drachman, and he connected me with some film companies that used to base themselves there. And so I worked as a production assistant on several movies and got offered a job in LA. And so when I went to LA, I went to get that job, and the producer told me, "Kid, it's a great industry. You're going to love it here, but we're laying people off the current production we're on, and I can't bring you in. The unions would kill me. So good luck."
Yeah, there's a recession, too. 73 was a recession, right?
Yeah. So he was producing a film called The Towering Inferno.
Yeah, I know.
Which had multiple production companies going.
Yes.
And I got there just a little too late. They were shrinking it down, and there was no room for me. And I fumbled around, and I had done valet parking in high school at the Solarium restaurant on Tanque Verde. And so I knew how to park cars. So I went to this valet parking company and spoke to them and ended up parking cars for 3 years and having a ball.
Do you ever think back, if I had have gotten maybe there a little earlier, I could have been,
I could have been. Yeah, there's another could have been.
I mean, because it could have.
Yeah. I was there, and I had some connections. None of them paid off. It's a very closed industry.
Oh, yeah.
And I tried, and I was banging my head against the wall, and eventually I ran out of money. I had to work. I couldn't live on the change dish for very long. So I had to work, and I kept trying. And the whole time I was there, I kept trying, but I never was able to cross the thresholds.
Yeah. And so you do that for what, 4 years?
3 years.
3 years. And then what do you do?
And then I end up in New York City.
How did that happen?
I have family members that were in the fashion business and had talked to them, and they offered me a position with one of their divisions. And I went and worked for my family as the lowest man on the totem pole, and worked in a showroom on 7th Avenue selling dresses to professional buyers, department store buyers. And so that's where I learned the art of selling and the art of communicating with people. These were professional buyers for national chains. They were the most powerful buyers in the country in their given category. So if you didn't know your stuff, they would eat you for lunch.
Right.
So I had to learn the inventory. I had to learn my product line. I had to be able to speak about it with true knowledge, or forget it.
And so you would sell them, your family's fashion line, to these individuals for big corporations that would go all out to Neiman Marcus, Macy's, and those kind of things.
Right.
May Company and that kind of stuff.
Correct. All the national chains had buying offices in New York, and they would bring their regional buyers into New York at various times. And the permanent showrooms on 7th Avenue would host all these buyers as they would rotate in and out of New York. And those were my accounts. And sometimes I would travel out to them and see them. But most of the time I worked out of the New York showroom.
And what kind of clothes were you selling? Was this like dresses?
Dresses.
Only dresses?
Yeah. Yeah, I was a dress specialist.
And how did you learn to become a dress specialist?
I had a mentor in the business there who taught me how to do it. And he taught me detail. I took classes at the Fashion Institute of Technology, which is a well-known college in New York.
Yeah.
And so I took classes there on fabric, design, color, manufacturing, and that helped me sell. I knew I had to know my stuff. But this older gentleman who was my mentor taught me so much. And he taught me how to find the important buyers and what to do, and the fine line of wining and dining them to just strong business. And there was a little bit of both going on. And you had to know how to do both. And we had a guy who could get theater tickets for us, and we had a guy who could get all kinds of things that buyers may want. And we took care of them. It was just how the industry worked.
And you're like 24, 25?
Right.
Yeah. So you go from Tucson, right, with very few people in Tucson, to LA, to the Grotto at Hef's, meeting the most powerful and famous people in the world,
Right.
to New York City, which you're still this little small town boy, but now you're kind of growing up and seeing all that entails.
Right.
That had to be quite eye-opening.
It was a thrill. I was nervous. I've been nervous at every crossroads in my life. But if you don't choose to go forward, you're not going to succeed.
No, you have to take the chance.
Right. So I did, and I was successful in New York. Eventually tried to buy out my family and become a permanent member up there, and it didn't work. I wasn't able to leverage it and make it work. So I took a position as a sales rep for another company in Atlanta, Georgia. And I opened a regional showroom, and I became a multi-line manufacturer's rep, independent rep in Atlanta, and lived down there for several years, owned the showroom there for 18 years.
So how long were you in New York before you went to Atlanta?
4 years.
Okay. So you're 26 when you moved to Atlanta or so?
Right.
And
met my first wife there.
And why Atlanta?
Jimmy Carter was president.
Yes.
The headline on Time magazine was the New South. And Atlanta was the home of the New South, and there were towers and high rises, and it was the happening city.
So you really saw it as, okay, this is an opportunity. This place is growing. I'm going to go. I'm young. And so you go there and you meet your wife there?
Right. My first wife.
Yeah.
Yeah, and my two kids were born there.
Yeah.
And
what did she do there?
She was she worked at a department store. And she was attracted to me because I had a showroom in the Apparel Mart that was a to-the-trade showroom, and she loved the fact she could get in with me.
And see all the different kind of new things. Were you doing just dresses still at that point?
Yeah. I stayed a dress specialist. I ended up representing an average of 6 different manufacturers at a time. And my showroom was known as the dress showroom.
Were these high-end dresses or
mostly moderate?
Yeah.
Lower middle to upper middle.
Yes.
Price points. And my wife ended up working with me, and I had a small staff in the showroom. And the buyers would come in from all over the Southeast and do their seasonal buying. And I had a pretty good reputation as the dress guy. And then at some point I saw the handwriting on the wall that being an independent rep was dying. And in the early 90s, it just sort of fading away. Manufacturers were giving away our commissions to make deals with major stores. And I saw the independent rep was going to get squeezed out. So I knew then it was time to make a change. And I went through some career counseling, and the top choice on my printout
Yes.
was real estate broker.
That
And
was you had determined, or you had taken a survey and they said, no, this is what you should do.
It
kind
was
of
a
thing?
Myers and Briggs test,
Yes.
and it came back, and that was the number one
Thing that showed
result.
Yes.
And a light bulb went off in my head. Oh, of course. What a natural thing to do. And then I was faced with the question of whether to do it in Atlanta,
Right.
where I lived, or maybe come back to Tucson, my hometown, which was growing nicely. And I missed Tucson, and my mom lives here, and my brother lives here, and I have connections here. My then wife loved coming to Tucson, and we decided to sort of reinvent ourselves back home in Tucson. And so came back here 25 years ago.
And are you happy that you made that move?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
mean-
Atlanta's a cool city.
I mean, it's really grown. I mean, as somebody who is doing real estate, you might have done better in Atlanta.
Maybe so.
Yeah.
Maybe so. Atlanta's a great city, and
But you
it's
have to live in
beautiful.
Atlanta,
and the rivers. We lived overlooking one of the rivers,
Yeah.
and it was a great place. But when you start over again midlife,
Yes.
I had to make a choice of where I thought I could find the most success quickly. And I thought, Tucson, I have a good handle on this.
And you have connections.
I have connections, and I know business at a higher level than a lot of people in this business.
Yes. Oh, I'm sure that is very true. And how old were you when you moved over here back?
40.
So you're
41.
40. So that was a true kind of midlife crisis.
Right, with 2 little kids.
How old were they at that time?
They were 12 and 9.
Yeah, that's a huge, huge change.
Right. So I knew I had to build a business quickly.
And it was strictly because you saw that job as a middle marketer gone.
Yeah.
It wasn't, I don't like this or I'm tired of it anymore. It was really more of the former.
Well, it was a combination of both. It was the former and the traveling. I had to travel a lot. And as my kids were growing, it was harder to be gone.
Yeah.
I would come home and my kids would be excited that daddy's home. And at some point, they barely looked up when I came home. And I realized this is not good.
Yeah.
They
missing
expect me
out.
to be away. So it's time to make a change.
Yeah. And so you moved here in what year back here?
96.
In 1996. Yeah, I was already here. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. And so what did you do then?
I went to real estate school and got my license, and initially hung my license at the Coldwell Banker franchise here in town, and started building a business and figuring out how to do it. And the ownership of that Coldwell Banker franchise had a meltdown within my first year there.
Oh, nice.
And I realized I had to go. There was Phoenix ownership. They didn't seem to care about Tucson. And I realized I had to go. And at that time, Long Realty had a president, a fellow named Steve Quinlan, who is one of the best visionaries in real estate Tucson's ever seen. And he had just taken over Long, and he had a vision of what he thought it could be. And he was taking the Foothills office and making it a flagship office. And he spent 3 hours with me. And I was only in the real estate business less than a year. And he spent 3 hours with me, which I thought was pretty amazing. And he mapped out a vision, and everything he mapped out came true. So I went with him. I'm so glad I did, and I've been there ever since.
And what's the advantage of or disadvantage of working with somebody like Long versus just hanging out your shingle by yourself and having your own company?
Being surrounded by quality agents. This goes back to the earlier conversation about professionalism. Long really preaches it. They teach it, and they have lots of managers. Our one branch office has 3 managers, and they're constantly working with the agents on their professionalism. And being surrounded by quality people, I can pitch a listing to any number of people in my office and get exposure immediately. And they can do the same with me. So we sell a lot of things before they ever hit the market because we've got the top agents within yelling distance down the hall. And that's a great thing.
And what does make a top agent?
A lot of things. Ability to communicate is one, probably number one. Tenacity, vision, and the ability to listen. Clients talk, and they say things. And if you don't hear them, you're missing out.
So true. Yeah, I get that. Yeah, they're trying to tell you what they want.
Right.
There's nothing more irritating, in my opinion, at least when I'm searching for a piece of property, is giving my parameters what I'm interested in, and then them showing me something that is completely not in that realm. It's like that. Those are not things I'm interested in.
Right.
Did you not hear me?
Right.
Or what? You know.
Right.
And same with art.
Right.
You know, somebody
Right.
comes in and says, "I'm looking for this kind of imagery or this person," and you're trying to sell to them by showing them all sorts of stuff. They're going to be like, "No."
Right.
I mean, I'd much rather say, "I don't have what you want now,"
Right.
because I kind of think I know what you want. And if I get that, I'll let you know, or maybe there's someplace else you should look and see.
Right. Right. That it's so true. And the sense to follow up when you do come across the thing that's right for that client.
You did that with me.
Oh yeah. They're blown away
Yeah.
that you remembered, that you kept looking for what they
Yeah.
wanted, even though you didn't have it. You kept looking.
Mm-hmm.
And like now, where the inventory is so low, you know, I have to keep my eyes open for a lot of people.
Right.
And when I see something, it's hard to find, but you've got to jump on it. And then I've got to communicate that to the client that they need to jump on it, and if they like it.
Right. And do you have something where you set up a spreadsheet that says, okay, here's Mark Sublette. This is what he likes. This is what he's interested in. This is his price range, da-da-da.
I do.
Yeah, you do. So you really do it on a, you know, because I don't do those kind of things. I mean, we have the stuff in our database,
Right.
but a lot of it's in my head.
Right.
And I just know that such and such would be perfect for this and that.
So I actually keep an old-fashioned bulletin board,
Mm-hmm.
and I have a spreadsheet that I use, an Excel spreadsheet, but I keep it pinned to the bulletin board, and I glance up at it every day. And I think, oh, what's he looking for? What's he looking for? Did I see that? I see something interesting, and I look at my board, and I think, who's looking for something like that? And so I scan that every day, and that's what keeps me on top of my game.
And how many people would be on a board like that?
There's probably 20
Yeah.
at any given time.
Yeah, because, I mean, when people are looking, they're looking.
Right.
They're active, and boom, okay, they're in the process of wanting to find something for whatever reason. They need to go to the board.
Right. And some are out of town, some aren't quite ready, some are almost there, but if they're not there and you can let them know about things that are in their category, they're impressed with that. Mm-hmm. Even though they're not ready. It's okay. You know, I learned a long time ago, big trees are grown from small seeds. Mm-hmm. So sometimes you plant a seed and it takes a while to get to the final end.
Yes. And how long did it take you to get successful? You get here in 96, you start. How long did it take for you to really start selling?
It really took me 4 years to feel like I had critical mass. I did open houses. I did all the stuff that new agents do,
Right.
even though I was middle-aged.
Right.
I connected with some agents that had listings that I could hold open and good listings. And through those, I met clients. And with that came some business, and the business grew and the referrals grew.
Right.
And in about 4 years, there was critical mass to where I felt I had a nice practice going.
So you would, an agent who doesn't want to sit in the house,
Right.
you could go sit. And what happens in that situation if you bring a client and get a client? Do you get a % of that sale? Or
If you're sitting in the house and you pick up a client that wants to buy that house, then you represent the buyer. So you get the buyer side of the deal. If you're there and the buyer comes in and they've already got an agent and they buy that house, you get nothing.
Yeah.
So you're betting on the come.
Yeah. Interesting.
But you do it to meet people, and that's why realtors hold open houses, is to meet potential clients.
It's really to meet people. It's not so much to hopefully sell it, really?
Mostly not.
Interesting.
Now I rarely hold an open house. I let the newer agents hold my listings open because they're trying to get new business. I'm listing the property. I may hold it open once here and there just to have my client be satisfied that I'm in there. But the real bottom line in open houses is for agents to meet clients. And my business has evolved into a referral business, and I don't really need to do that anymore. I don't really enjoy it anymore.
Yeah, I'm sure not.
And so I like my phone to ring and hi, I'm a friend of Mark Sublette's.
Right.
And he said, you're the best.
Yeah.
That's golden.
Yeah, that's when you know.
Right.
And right now, is it the hardest part is just getting the inventory?
It's sifting through the inventory and then getting an offer to work, because oftentimes you've got multiple offers.
Yeah, that has to be super frustrating.
Oh my gosh. I had one the other day where we were one of 8 offers.
Yes.
And my client was getting financing, and we were beat out by cash Even though I think we had the best offer, the cash deal got it because sellers want to take cash. They don't want the contingencies that
Yes.
go with loans.
Yeah.
So I had one hand tied behind my back, but that's okay. We did it, and then we found another house where there were 3 offers, and we did get it. And my client understood the market well enough to where they were able to step up and let me guide them into making it happen.
Right. Well, I think it's funny. I find it interesting that sometimes people don't want to make a full offer.
Right.
And they feel like, oh, they'll come down.
Right.
And to me, that is the absolute wrong thing to do.
I agree. It depends on the market.
Yeah, of course.
If everything is priced with negotiating in mind,
Right.
and there's plenty of inventory, then that works. But in a market that's brisk with very low
Right.
inventory, you want to be the strongest offer out there.
Right.
If you want that house enough to write an offer,
Yes.
get it.
My last 2 homes, I think, have been full offers. And
They were great homes.
they're great homes.
Right.
And one was in a competitive market. One wasn't actually in a competitive market, but it was a great house. And it's the same with art. For those who are out there listening, don't be cheap because you think you can get a little off and you're going to miss a great piece because it's going to go away. And you lose it for, $100 or 5% or whatever because you're thinking, oh, I can get it a little cheaper. And the realities are there's going to be a Mark Sublette or somebody behind you who sees the quality and goes, yes, I'll take that.
Right.
And over time, and sometimes time's very short, you don't remember the 5% that you got, that you paid 5% more or whatever, but it's gone up, or it's, something you love and you got the piece.
Right.
Right.
So. And sometimes I remind clients, if we're on an $800,000 house and we're $5,000 apart, I have to remind them, is $5,000 going to change your life?
Yeah.
Or do you want the house?
And will you even remember it?
Right. The deal, that you forget about the deal.
Yeah.
You move in, you forget about the deal.
know.
You live in the house. You enjoy the house.
Yes.
You raise your family in that house.
Yeah.
That's the importance of it. Pay the money
Yeah.
if you want it.
If you want it.
Right.
Or
look at cheaper houses.
yes, exactly.
If you want to spend less, trade down.
But just,
Right.
step up and you get what you get.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So I try not to judge what people do and what they're spending. You can always find things for more or for less.
Yeah.
There is no top. There's almost no bottom.
But it has to be frustrating when you have the house and they start nickel and diming it.
Oh, yeah.
On either end, actually, not just the buyer, but the seller too. When they go, well, I'm not going to sell this because I want to get $2,000 for that air conditioning thing.
Right. Right. And that's where
On an $800,000 deal.
I know. And it really gets out to repairs, inspections and repairs. And people start splitting hairs and having problems, and they want the house to be perfect.
Yeah.
Well, the house may be 30 years old.
Right.
It's not going to be perfect.
Right.
And there are going to be older parts of that house that aren't going to be perfect. That can make or break a deal because people have a mindset that the house has to be perfect when it's transferred. It doesn't necessarily have to be perfect. It has to be functioning.
Right.
But it doesn't necessarily have to be perfect.
Right. Yeah. My last house I took as is
Right.
with a full offer.
Right. And then you did to it what you wanted to do.
Yeah,
to
I
it.
did what was required. Yeah. And I knew that going in. That's okay. I got the property and the other 2 people did not get the property.
Right.
So, it's the same with art sometimes. You just have to, it's got a bad frame. I mean, you can replace the frame, but you'll get the piece.
Right.
That's something that's very doable.
If it speaks to you, just a house or
Yeah.
art, if it speaks to you and you want it,
Right.
and you can afford it, buy it.
Right. Don't mess around.
Right.
Yeah. Because you'll regret it.
Right.
I don't regret, I don't think any houses ever, because I always went after them.
Mm-hmm.
If I decided I wanted it, I get it, and that's it. Or if I didn't, that's okay too, because I made the effort.
Right.
If I make a full boat offer and I don't get it because of some other reason, well, that's just the way
Right.
it lined up. But it wasn't for not trying.
Right.
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 And I think art's the same way. And now, so when I go look at houses, I can't help but look at the art that's inside the houses, because sometimes it's remarkably good and sometimes it's remarkably poor. And how do you see art in a house as far as affecting sales and that kind of thing when people are looking to buy a house? Does it affect it much?
It does. It does to me.
Yeah.
Some houses sell better vacant. because the way the seller lived in them,
Right.
it's not attractive.
Right.
But beautiful art in a home can make a home sparkle to a point where it becomes irresistible. So art can really make the difference. And if the seller has less than art, it can hurt the sale. So sometimes I ask them to take the art down. But if they've got great art, it can really help a sale. And I like that. And the same thing with sculpture and things that are attached outside sculpture can really set a property off beautifully.
And do you ever recommend them to put art? Say, you should probably get a painting or two or borrow or whatever.
I do.
Yeah.
I do. I suggest art. I suggest countertops. I suggest paint. I suggest flooring. I can spend their money pretty well.
Yeah.
But usually when I do, there's a return that's at least double.
Yeah,
Sometimes triple or quadruple.
I would think things like carpet and paint would be the biggest, easiest, and
Right.
biggest.
Right. And sometimes just putting granite counters in a house
that
that
makes
should
sense.
have granite counters.
Right.
You get that back in spades.
Yeah. One of the things that you don't want to spend money on because it's going to be, like bathrooms or kitchens or those kind of things. Can you get your money back in those when you do that to try to make a house more sellable?
It really depends on the house.
Yeah.
It depends on what it is, where it is, and the value. If you've got a fabulous home on a fabulous lot and it's got a weak kitchen, then it may be worth making that kitchen better.
I've always felt it's kind of better to fix it and make it look right,
Right.
before you sell it.
Right. And some you want to leave it for the vision of the buyer, but oftentimes you want to make it better and have it turnkey because buyers oftentimes don't have the vision.
I know, isn't that amazing?
Right.
It always
Right.
amazes me.
Right. So I had to learn how to have the vision.
Yes.
How to walk into a house and think, what will make this house more saleable?
Yes.
And sometimes it's spit and polish.
Yes.
I tell clients you never go into a car dealership and see a car that's not polished up.
Yeah. Do you go into the house before you ever show it to a client so you have a sense of what you're dealing with, or is it?
It depends.
Yeah.
Not so much anymore. If I'm working with a buyer, I oftentimes don't have the ability to preview before they come on the market. Sometimes I'm in there and the client never sees it. I go in with my phone and do FaceTime, and we walk around and they'll make an offer and having never walked through it.
And now, is that just because of the coronavirus, or is that because of the way that's the way it is
A
nowadays?
combination of the coronavirus and the swift market.
Yes. So it's because Tucson's market, I guess, has been strong for a while now.
It's been strong with low inventory for about a year.
Yes.
I just had a client from Phoenix moving down, knows Tucson well, and we missed out on a house or two. And one came on, and I went over there with my phone. We did a FaceTime half-hour walk around and looked behind every nook and cranny. And by the time we got done, he said, "Let's write it up."
Yeah.
And we wrote a really nice over full price offer, and they got the house.
And is that a client you'd ever worked with or sold a house with?
No, it was
But
actually the son of a client.
Yeah.
Mom referred him to me.
Yeah. So they trusted you because you
Right.
really have to have trust
Right.
to be able to do that.
But it came from my referral base. So
Yeah.
when I come to a client through my referral base and his mother said, "Use Jim, he'll help you,"
Yes.
he came to me with full trust.
Right. And he's younger.
Right.
And technology is less
Right.
problematic. I
Right.
think.
He's a techie millennial.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And do you see that big change? You see a big change in that? I mean, because the millennials are going to be the richest, generation ever.
Right.
And they're going to be, a lot of them are buying now or going to be.
Right. They're breaking through. They were not buying until recently, and they were renting. They didn't want the permanency. They didn't want the roots. But I've noticed the last couple of years they're breaking through, and they're realizing, they're having kids, they're having life, they want the things that their parents may have had.
Right.
And they don't want to reinvent life 100%.
Yes.
They want the stability of owning a home. So now we're seeing them break through, which is great to see.
And how do they look at things differently than their folks?
It's all online. They're used to pushing a button for everything. And questions like, well, the home inspection, can't I just push a button and get the home inspection? Do I have to be there? Do I have to
And
physically sign?
why can't they just push a button? I'm serious. And get one.
Well, they almost can. Everything can be done remotely. What'll happen is I will be there at a home inspection if they can't be there, And then I'll be their eyes and ears, and I'll help relay what information we found at the home inspection along with the report. And then we'll go through it, and we'll spend an hour or so going through the report and deciding what's important on repairs. So it's almost like pushing a button, but I physically have to be there.
You still have to be there.
Because I've got to see it myself.
Yes.
And if I'm going to explain to them that something is broken or cracked or deficient,
Right.
I want to know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. And is this really a problem?
Right.
Is it worth fighting the fight
Right.
for a broken gasket?
Right. And is the house still a good house?
Right.
Maybe after an inspection, you look at it and you go, I don't know that you even want this house.
Yeah.
It's a mess. It's not repairable. It's not going to be the wonderful house you were hoping it would be.
Yes.
And then you have to be frank with them and say, you might want to consider moving on.
Yeah, that's got to be a hard one for.
It is.
And do they listen to you, or sometimes they go, "I'm doing it anyway"?
They listen to me more often than not.
Yeah.
And that's the trust.
Right. I
Which
know
is
I
nice.
would. Somebody's telling me don't buy.
Right.
Right.
I mean, I only make money when I sell things. So,
Right. It's not in your interest to tell them that.
Exactly. Yeah. But that's how you earn their trust.
That's true. I mean, I do the same thing in art.
Yeah.
All the time. If something is overpriced or whatever, I just don't think it's a great thing, I'll tell them. If it is a great thing, I'll tell them.
Right.
It's a great thing.
Right.
Yeah, go ahead. Even if it's not, I don't own it. I don't care.
Right.
If it's a really great thing, yeah, it's a great thing.
Yeah.
It may be priced a little high, but it's a great thing.
Right. And I find that too. Sometimes there are homes that I'm not involved in, but I can recommend it, and it's like, it's the right thing to do. I'm not going to make a nickel on this.
Right.
Just do it. It's a wise decision.
And what are the jostler kind of houses? I mean, we have a few house named architects that are really top tier.
Right.
Who would you say those people are?
Well, you've got, from the olden days, you've got the Josiah Jostler.
Yes.
You've got Lewis Hall.
Yeah.
You've got Eastman. You've got Tom Gist. And then getting more contemporary, you've got Tyson and Murphy, David Tyson, Neil Murphy. They built quite a few homes in the foothills with a contemporary twist from the 70s into the 2000s. You've got architects like Mark Soloway and Kevin Howard, who are doing spectacular new construction now and some of the most unique architecture in Tucson. Mostly contemporary. You've got Mike Franks, who's just a spectacular architect, and he works in almost any genre, and he does commercial as well as residential, but he's very talented. And you've got various builders. Paul Rondelli is also an architect builder. So you've got key names around Tucson who build beautiful properties. And when I see a name attached to a house, that tells me something.
What about, her name is slipping my mind right now, but she's the female architect.
Judith Chafee.
Chafee, yeah, thank you. I mean, I've been in a couple of hers that were just phenomenal.
Amazing.
There was one I wanted to buy.
Right.
But it was just, it was too much, and I knew it was going to cost a massive amount of restoration. But, I mean, she was remarkable, right?
She really was, and she was really a forefront in the female world of architecture.
Yes.
And she was based here for a while.
Yes.
And really put her footprint on Tucson. And there are some spectacular homes. There's one up in Skyline Country Club that hangs off a cliff on stilts. That's just amazing.
That was the one I was looking at.
Okay.
Yeah.
And there's another one off of Camino Real.
Yeah.
That's got the Ramada over the top of it. It's called the Ramada House.
Yes, I know which one that is.
And
there's a book that just came out on Chafee, by the way.
Right.
So, and do you see those come up very often?
Here and there.
Yeah.
Here and there. The one off Camino Real is available.
Yeah.
If you want to go look at it.
There you go. Maybe I have to go look at it.
Time.
Well, I'll wait. I'll look at it before I let this podcast come out.
That's great.
I am impressed with what she did. I really, her vision.
Me too. And she was very desert oriented. She knew her positionings and her sun and how not to expose the west side and to get shade over the top and to orient north. And her views her sight lines are magnificent.
It must be fun to sell a Jaffe or a Chafee house or these, kind of
they're the most fun.
Great Howard house or whatever. Yeah.
Right. It's a lot of work, but it's the most fun.
Yeah.
Because it gets my juices flowing, and it's not so much about the income. It's about doing a project that I just love.
Yes. Selling one of those great ones.
Yes.
That's, is always going to be a great house.
Yes. Yeah.
You must know it when you do it too. It's like, oh, that was one of them.
Oh yeah, and I don't mind the extra work involved. It's just part of the deal. It's okay because I love accomplishing something like that.
Yeah, And more than likely, I would assume homes like that, when they come back on the market, they're going to go back to the person who helped sell it.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
That's pretty much...
If you've treated your client well,
right,
they're going to call you back if you stay in touch with them.
Mm-hmm.
That's the key.
And that's where you get most of your inventory, I assume, from from old clients that
Right.
you sold houses to.
Right, or their friends.
Yes.
But yeah, I get them back. There are houses I've sold 6 times. They just keep coming back to me, and if I have the buyer going back in, it eventually comes back to me.
Yeah.
So it's fun.
Yeah. I've done a painting like that 3 times, and rugs that way and blankets. Yeah.
Right.
You get them back.
And then clients that I have a client that I've done 11 transactions with.
Oh my.
So you get to know them pretty well, and
Those all house transactions?
coming and going, marriage, divorce,
Okay.
all kinds of things.
Yeah.
And with all their life changes, I'm involved.
Oh my God. You know when they call us.
That's right. Okay.
They go to the top of the bulletin board.
Right. And I guess that marriage didn't last.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's funny.
But that's okay. Divorce is quite a feeder for my business.
Yeah, no, for us, it's death, taxes, and divorce.
Yeah.
And those are the things that reason they have to sell things.
Right, right. I've got a lot of senior clients who are moving to assisted living, and so it's that move. That's very difficult. You have to treat it with kid gloves.
Oh yeah.
You have to know how to work with people who are making the move they perceive to be their last move.
Yeah.
And their mortality.
Right.
And so you have to be very gentle with them, and it takes a lot of work.
Yep.
But it's gratifying.
Yeah, same thing.
And there's a sadness to it.
Yeah,
too.
same thing.
Yeah.
I go to houses and,
Right.
they have to get rid of everything, downsizing. And often I will tell them, pick out some of the pieces. Don't sell everything.
Right.
I don't need everything. Pick out things that really mean something to you, that you want to keep with you, so it feels like your home and your things, and not just get rid of everything.
Right.
And they do, and it makes a big difference for them in that transition. It's a hell of a transition when you're getting rid of your house and your art. Don't forget that, because that's the other part they're getting rid of.
Right.
And all the vegetation they've grown from a little seedling in a tree that's now huge and all that. It's just, to me, I also think that the outside of the house, the land and the vegetation is as much a part of the home and as important as the house itself.
I agree. I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you must see houses like that have that special.
Oh, I do.
thing.
I do. And when you've got grounds of a house that has been loved,
Right.
it shows.
Right.
And whether it's been gardeners or landscapers taking care of it, or the homeowner, if there's love involved, if there's landscapers, the homeowner's directing the landscaper, it shows, and it's so wonderful. And it's hard for a seller to walk away when they've put that love into it. There's so much pride,
Right.
which has its own challenge when the owner wants to go but really doesn't want to go.
I heard of a story the other day. I read it. I think they were showing a house, and the wife came out with in the nude, and the real estate owner was like, "What the heck?" And so clearly that didn't go down. And ultimately they sold the house, and the wife came back later and said, "Well, I didn't want to sell it. I just didn't want to sell my house yet, so I just did everything I could to destroy any kind of sale."
And I see that not necessarily with the walking around nude, but I see that in sabotage.
Yeah.
A seller, one spouse may sabotage the deal because they really don't want to go.
Yeah.
And there's all kinds of ways to sabotage a deal.
Oh, I'm sure.
And it's not fun, and it's hard to be in the middle of that.
Yeah. Do you play counselor and those kind of things? And
Totally.
Say, you
Totally.
guys got to get your act together.
Yeah, half my day is spent as a counselor.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot. So that really is a lot of being a real estate person.
There's so much emotion involved. Your home is so meaningful, and there's so much emotion in selling or buying that counseling is a big part of it. And so you have to do it, and you have to have empathy, and you have to understand where they're coming from and look through their eyes. And you don't necessarily have to live their path, but you do have to be able to look through their eyes.
And do you Have they given courses in that in real estate? Do they do those kind of things, or do they just kind of expect you to know it?
I think they expect you to know it.
Yeah.
I've taken psychology classes over the years, and I've always had a good sense of understanding people and how they communicate. And that's really helped me in what I do.
Yeah. I hadn't really thought of that in terms of real estate, but it makes sense.
Right.
That's same in my business,
Right.
actually. But
Right. You've got to get in their shoes, and you've got
Yeah.
to be empathetic to their viewpoint.
yes. And so where do you see this field going? You've been doing it now for a long time, 20 plus years, whatever.
You know, I'm fearful that it's going to be more push a button, take less money, the Zillow model. It's going in that direction as younger people are buying. They're expecting that. So I'm fearful that the old counselor like myself, who can really guide them through a transaction with my experience, will be eventually cast aside. At some point, I will slow down and won't work with the fever that I work now. But I feel like they're trying to cast us aside. I'm fighting it.
Yeah.
I'm out there. My referral business keeps coming, and as long as it does, I'm there. But yeah, I think things are changing. There are lots of push a button, they come by your house models, and they've had moderate success, but not total success. Some of the companies that do that have already gone out of business just in the last 2 years. So, but I still think it's coming.
Do you see younger people coming into your profession?
I do.
They still are.
I do. And I see more people coming right out of college, where when I got in the business, it was mostly people making a transition from one career to the second. Now I'm seeing young people come out of college right into real estate. And they hit the ground running, and they develop new ways of doing things. And it's terrific. And if they have good ethics and they have good professionalism, they can make it. And I'm happy to see it, and I'm happy to help them.
What do you think it is about a young person that wants to go into real estate? Do they look at it as just I hate to use the word easy because we both know it's not easy. Easy, yeah, you laugh at it. Easy way to make a living.
You know, I think there's an entrepreneurial spirit that it takes to do this. And if you have that and you want to create your business, a real estate practice is a business you can create with knowledge and education fairly easily. And then with time, you can grow it into something substantial. So it's one of the few small businesses that you can start without having to buy inventory,
Right.
and just invest in yourself and invest in the time and hopefully have enough money to live while you're establishing yourself and build your own business and be a true small business entrepreneur.
Yeah, that's true. There aren't a lot of businesses like that.
Right. You want to open a restaurant? Well, you better take big
Right.
loans, have a lot of risk, and be a little crazy.
Right.
You know, you want to open a tech company? You better have a lot of money, venture capitalists, partners,
Yep.
all this stuff. You want to be a real estate broker? You can do it all by yourself. You can affiliate with a company that will help train you, and you can build that business right out of the gate.
And you can make a really good living.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. There are realtors who make well over $1 million a
Yeah,
year.
I'm sure. In Tucson?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, they sell the more expensive homes or
A
something.
lot of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anything else you want to leave with us, your little pearls that you might have? Do you have a website, by the way, that people can reach you? How do people reach you?
I do. My website is homesintucson.com. All one word, homesintucson.com. And my pearl of wisdom is I love Tucson. Tucson's a great place to be. It's
Yep.
my home, and I'm very proud of it. If you take pride in this community, it's a wonderful, wonderful place to be.
Yeah, Tucson's great.
It is.
Yeah.
Sabino Canyon,
I know.
all the canyons, the mountains.
Don't come. No one come.
Right. I want them to come, but I don't want them to come.
But if you come,
Right.
buy a house, use Jim Jacobs, and you can come fill
Right.
the walls with Medicine Man Gallery
Exactly.
art.
And then we'll close the door after you.
Yeah, then you're the last one.
Right.
Well, I think Tucson does feel that way. I always used to wonder how people could be that way. Why wouldn't they want more people to their town, especially if they're in retail? But,
Right.
It's a great city.
Right.
know,
I mean, we want our businesses to survive and do well and thrive, but we don't want to be overrun and turned into a major city.
Yeah, we don't want to be Phoenix, basically.
Right. I think we're a nice big 1 million person city.
Yeah.
We're a metropolis. We have most of everything we want. We have to go to Phoenix once in a while, but that's an easy drive.
Yeah, just
and
for the
it's better to live here.
airport, maybe. And that's Well, we have a mountain, a beautiful mountain. We have swirls, we have green areas, and it's a different feel than Phoenix.
Right. The natural beauty here is just spectacular.
Yeah, I think that's it. Phoenix has other things. They do. They have better shopping.
Right. They have great freeways. They have great shopping. They have
except for
concerts that we don't get here. I love live music, so
they have great museums. I mean, they do have.
And
they do have some great things.
Right.
We're not dishing them. We just love what we have.
Right.
So
and 100 miles away is...
stay in Phoenix.
Right. 100 miles away is pretty easy if you want to go up there.
Yeah. Well, that is the beauty of it.
Right. It's easy.
We can go up there and stay at a nice hotel like the Biltmore Hotel and enjoy Maynard Dixon's murals.
Right.
And then come back to our little, piece of heaven.
That's right.
That Jim Jacobs put us in. All right. Well, thank you for taking the time today. It was really interesting. I wanted to I've always been interested in the real estate area. I think and now I know for sure that I've always felt like art and real estate are very similar.
I agree.
I think they're very, very similar. And, great pieces sell, great ethics rule, and, understanding what you're selling and having a really deep knowledge of it makes a big difference.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mark.
Yep.
This was fun. I enjoyed doing it. And great chatting.
All right, let's go look at a house.
Terrific. We're out of here.
All right, Jim Jacobs, Art Dealer Diaries. All right, time for masks again. Yay. We need your support for the Medicine Man Gallery channel, so make sure to click the subscribe button and tap the little bell icon to be notified when we upload a new video, which we do every morning on Wednesday and Friday. See you soon.